and welcome to this week's YouTube video. When you are painting an object outside, it is very important to understand what the light is doing. I always say paint the light and not the object because it is the light that makes the object interesting. In today's video, I'm going to show you this recent commission painting I did of Poddy enjoying the sunspot on some decking. Let's get into the video and I'll talk about my process as I go along. As this painting needs to be architecturally correct, it is important that my drawing was right to start with. Where you have lots of straight angular lines that are walls joining walls, use a ruler to get them straight. A simple trick, if you have a similar reference photo, is to look at where your lines begin and end. Print out your reference photo to the same size as your canvas, then you can just lay it over the top of your canvas, but perhaps half a centimetre in, and then just mark in where your lines start and where they end. This will then allow you to join them up with a ruler and you'll know that they are correct. Because it took me so long to draw this out, I painted it section by section. If you've watched some of my other videos on my channel, you'll see I generally cover the canvas in a sort of light paint scumbling layer and then work in thicker paint over the top. When I have a painting where the drawing is quite complicated, I paint it section by section. This is purely to protect my drawing as long as possible. When painting in this way, you have to be very disciplined in painting a section and then moving on. It is very tempting to fiddle and readjust. This is because it is much harder to judge where you are out when there are great big gaps, as there was for so much of the time in this painting. So paint a section, trust you are right or thereabouts, and just move on to the next area. I also wanted to mention about the sort of brushes you will need to paint all those straight lines. Flat brushes like these ones by Artmaster have really good straight sharp edges. When you paint the edge, you want to move the brush along the line either like this or like this. If you've drawn the line straight with a ruler on your canvas to start with, you won't need a ruler to paint the line in straight. A brush like this will suffice. Let me show you my palette that I use for this painting. The colours are cadmium yellow, yellow ochre light, transparent yellow oxide, cadmium red, alizarin crimson, transparent red oxide, ultramarine deep, titanium zinc white, and burnt umber. I've also mixed up a few other colours which I use quite a lot. These are a black red of alizarin crimson, transparent red oxide, and a small amount of ultramarine deep, a purple of cadmium red and ultramarine deep, an orange red of yellow ochre light and cadmium red, a muted orange of transparent oxide red and yellow ochre light. Notice the top line are all warm colours. On the bottom, I've mixed up a green black of ultramarine deep and transparent yellow oxide. This one is cool in temperature. As I mentioned at the start of the video, this painting is all about painting the light correctly. Remember the rule, warm light equals cool shadows. So my areas in the shade will be cool in temperature, and I will use colours on my palette like my black green, my blue and also my purple. The areas in the sun will carry warm colours, so my top row on my palette plus my yellows. This is where my reference photo is not correct in what it's showing. Remember, a camera is never as sophisticated as the human eye and can never see the full range of colours that the eye would see. So what I know becomes important at plugging the information missing in the photo. Notice that I am dealing with blue, blue and white. Blue and white are not warm colours. In fact, blue is the coolest colour on the colour wheel and white is cool in temperature too. So if I paint this literally in blue and white, it won't work because it's in the sun. What can I do to fix this? To my blue, I have added a little orange. This immediately warms it up, especially when I make sure to lay it next to my pure blue or blue plus white. To my white, I add little yellow, which again warms it up, especially when I lay this colour next to my white. For my darker areas in the sun, I use my purple plus white plus generous amount of transparent yellow oxide. This gives me the warm stone colour. For my shadows, I use the purple as my base colour, but then I adjust my shadows depending upon how much light they are receiving. So for the areas furthest away from my light source, I will add a little green so my shadow will feel very cool. As I move closer to my light source, I add a little white to my purple plus a little transparent yellow oxide. This gives a bit of complexity to my shadows. I don't want them all blocked in one colour only. Understand, as they get nearer to the light source, they will probably warm up a little and get a bit lighter. I need to reflect this in my painting. For my tabby cat, in the darker areas, I start with burnt umber as my brown base. I adjust this just as I did with my shadows, depending upon whether I'm seeing areas of warm fur or cool fur. So if it is warmer, I may be adding some of the black red. If this is too dark, I'll then add a little yellow ochre light. Don't forget that burnt umber is a warm brown anyway, and so can be used by itself in warm areas too. Where I need the brown to be cooler, I just add some of my green black to my burnt umber plus a little white. This gives me those lovely cool browns which look cool when laid next to just burnt umber. Think about whether you need your brown to be a red brown, an orange brown or a yellow brown, because this is when you will need to add other warm colours to it. If it's none of these, the burnt umber will probably work fine on its own. For my really black areas, I mix my black, red and black green together. If I want it to be a warm black, I'll use more red. If I want it to be cool, then I use more green. As my brown lightens, I move on to this colour as my base, and I adjust it if necessary. So for these areas here, for example, I have used more yellow ochre light, as this orange was a little too dark. Yellow ochre light will lighten my mix while still keeping it warm. As I move into these areas here, I add some white to this mix, plus I add a bit of transparent yellow oxide. Transparent yellow oxide is a punchier yellow when mixed with white. It holds its colour better, so I use this one when I want to keep my warm temperature but need to lighten my mix with white. Remember, my cat is sat in the sun, so I can afford to push the saturation in my warm browns quite far. I find that long-haired comber brushes are really good for giving that soft fur effect without too much effort. I like to swap between this brush and my short flat Art Master brush. I am more likely to use the Art Master brushes for the short fur areas like the paws and face. Where it's longer and fluffier, I am more likely to use my comber brushes. The decking was a little bit of a nightmare to paint, and to be honest, initially I wasn't quite sure how I was going to do it because I needed to give the impression of the decking without laboriously painting every single line. Being free and expressive with something that needs to be correct is difficult. Decking is actually quite a muted brown, which I mix with this orange plus purple plus white. In some areas over here, I added some green to the brown mix. Here I added some red-orange, and here I added more purple. It's important to add colour variety to your base brown. This is what will make it look more realistic. If you block it in all one colour, it will look flat. For these dark crevices, I used both red and green and just sort of alternated the colour along the line. So in some areas it was a bit more red, in some areas a bit more green. And don't forget that red and green make brown, so as the colour mixes together, I also get a brown line too. Again, it's this variety that makes it a bit more interesting. I then mixed up a really warm light brown using my orange plus white plus all my yellows. I wanted it really warm. I then put my light lines in using my flat Art Master brush. I had issues of laying the paint on top of paint, and so found that scratching out the line first with the back of my paintbrush really helped me lay down clean colour. If you are finding your paint is being muddied by the colour that is already down on your canvas, then take it off in the affected areas. You could use a palette knife to do this, or perhaps the handle of your paintbrush for more precision. Once I laid all my stripes, I then had to rough it up a bit because it was all a bit too neat and uniform. Remember, the eye would not see it like this. Because I hadn't used any medium and my paint was quite stiff, I was able to take my Art Master brush and just push it about a bit. It's best to do a few strokes and then stand back and see how they look, because it's quite easy to get carried away, and before you know it, you've destroyed a significant area of your painting. So I guess it's controlled destruction that works best. I hope you have enjoyed today's video and found it useful. Please like and subscribe if you can, and check out my website sarahhallidayart.com, where you will find examples of my work and also details of online classes that I run. Thank you for watching, and see you for the next one.